So, going down in the boxing world this weekend, we have a massive heavyweight rematch between Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury. This is the highly anticipated rematch that I have been looking forward to for months, ever since the last one ended between these two guys. Listen, this is an outstanding matchup inside of boxing. And, whenever we talk about boxing nowadays, I feel like Turki Al Sheikh and Riyadh Season have done a spectacular job trying to revamp and revitalize and inject this new energy into boxing that has just been missing for such a long period of time, to where I'm actually excited about a lot of these boxing events, at least the headliners, right? Because on the undercards, they make it kind of hard to follow along, where the UFC, you're very familiar with a lot of the guys, where in boxing, they don't necessarily introduce those guys until they kind of get into their limelight in their career, which is a little critique that I have with boxing. But nonetheless, I expect this to be an outstanding event right here. And to me, this is very intriguing because whenever you have when you have two good boxers, that's fun, right? It's always fun. But when you have two big heavyweights that are so different in their styles and the way that they approach fights, it's incredibly interesting and intriguing to me. So when you talk about Tyson Fury versus Oleksandr Usyk, I mean, like I said, two very different guys that have a different way of kind of going about their business. So what I'm going to do is break down this matchup, and then I'm ultimately going to give you my prediction. So let's hop into this and just kind of talk about what we're looking here in Usyk and Fury, because first time around, I picked Usyk to win the fight. And I was taking a lot of heat from my friends, from people on here, people on social media. They're like, Tyson Fury, he's that guy, man. He's one of the best. Have you seen the way he moves? He's 6'9", dog. Look how he moves. Like that, the heavyweights aren't supposed to move like that. And I'm like, listen, I know Tyson Fury's different. The way he moves, even though he's built kind of funky, right? He's built a little funny. The guy can move like we've really never seen a heavyweight move. I mean, this guy's out there like, yeah, we saw Mike Tyson back in the day with the peekaboo style, the, rolling underneath shots and the footwork and the way that he was able to close the distance. We have Muhammad Ali, the fancy footwork, sticking and moving from the outside. And then we have Tyson Fury, who's just this big, tall guy, 6'9" and 85-inch reach, who comes in and is just like, it's like, how does this guy move like that for being that big? So with Tyson Fury, he's an absolute specimen when it comes to heavyweight boxing. We really haven't seen many guys that can fight like him. And then on the other side, you have the undefeated Oleksandr Usyk, who, in my opinion, coming into the matchup with Tyson Fury the first time, I felt like he's one of the most underrated heavyweight boxers in history, not just of this generation, just ever. Because with Usyk, every time you roll the tape, right, you go throughout his career and you look at the wins, and yeah, there's a bunch of decision wins on here, but he goes out there and he beats Anthony Joshua. And I think that was really where people got introduced to Oleksandr Usyk. They're like, look, you're going out there, you're beating a big old bodybuilder looking guy. Like, everybody knows who Anthony Joshua is, right? He was sponsored by Under Armour. I think he still is, right? I mean, he's this big dude. He looks like he looks cool. You know what I mean? Like, he's got the look to him. He looks like a bodybuilder. And that's going to draw people in. And not only that, he's got crazy power, right? And Anthony Joshua, he's a guy that I've always said, look, he's a good boxer. He's got good power. But to me, he lacks a little bit in terms of the technicalities. And that's fine, right, in heavyweight boxing until you get into the elite category with the Oleksandr Usyks, with the Tyson Furies. When you get in there with those guys, it's going to be quite a bit different because those guys have outstanding technique. And you've even seen that again, with Daniel Dubois, a guy that's kind of, found a way to kind of get his name back in the mix, right? These guys are very technically sound, and I feel like that's where Joshua lacks. But guess who exposed that? Oleksandr Usyk. He goes in there, outstanding movement, outstanding footwork, and his lower center of gravity, right? He's not everyone says he's small. 6'3", 223 pounds. That's not a small dude, right? But for heavyweight, that is a little bit of a smaller guy. But when it comes to Usyk, the footwork, the head movement, and the way that he is able to push forward and close the distance is some of the best in all of boxing. Not just in heavyweight, some of the best in boxing. And what we saw against Daniel Dubois going out there and getting a finish, I mean, that was spectacular. And I feel like that was the one where it's like, okay, now we got Usyk in here. He's showing people what he's about. He's going in there. He beats Anthony Joshua twice. And then he goes out there and gets a KO over a solid opponent in Daniel Dubois. Like, people shit on Dubois. They wrote him off in his last fight. Look how good Daniel Dubois is, right? And I feel like that's what boxing is coming down to, is if you can evolve and you can tighten up the technicalities, especially at heavyweight, you're going to have a nice career for yourself. And then goes out there against Tyson Fury, 6 months ago, which I can't believe it's been 6 months. It feels like it wasn't that long ago. this was one of the most exciting times for me in boxing. We had two heavyweight champions to where it's like my issue with boxing is like we got 50 million champions and 20,000 different organizations, and you can't follow along to who's who. It's like, well, we got a heavyweight champion here, a heavyweight champion there, and it's like, well, why can't we just kind of fall under the same roof and have a heavyweight champion, which I think is what Turki Al-Sheikh is trying to do with, with boxing, which I like, right? Because as an MMA fan and, which I mostly cover in UFC, it's a lot easier to follow along with who is who. And I feel like that really helps. And with boxing here, this is the true heavyweight championship fight. This is the undisputed heavyweight boxing champ in the world. It's not like, oh, well, they just won this belt. No, this is the heavyweight championship fight right here. I absolutely love it. And for me, it comes down to a couple things, right? In the first fight, I feel like Tyson Fury was doing a really, really good job utilizing the jab. He was sticking and moving. He kind of had a little bit of the Ali approach, which was, I'm going to sit on the back foot. I'm going to utilize my footwork. I'm going to utilize my head movement and defense, and I'm going to stay out of range, but I'm going to land the jab, and then I will eventually get to my backhand to land some of those power shots. But what we saw from Fury in the first meeting, he wasn't able to get a lot going outside of the jab. And I think that that's what kind of affected him in terms of the decision. I know he's like, look, it was a close fight. I feel like I won. Tyson Fury had some personal things going on. So he said, like, look, my what I was in mentally, that kind of state, that's definitely something that I think could have played a factor with Tyson Fury. But for what we saw in the ring that night, I thought Fury looked pretty good, right? I thought his movement was good. I thought his defense was okay. And the one thing about Tyson Fury, he does rely on his hands being low because he's a tall guy. He likes to kind of just bob his head around and not really get his hands up. So he is there to be hit if you could extend the combinations like Oleksandr Usyk does, which we will discuss here shortly. But I believe Tyson Fury is going to make some adjustments coming into this fight. I believe that he's like, when watching the tape back, he's going to go, look, I got the jab going. I'm faster. I got good movement, or I shouldn't say fast. Like the way he stings the jab out there is fast. And I don't know that Usyk is going to be able to get out of the way if Tyson Fury can feint the jab a little bit more and rely on establishing that early on. Because I feel like if he could do that and get to his right uppercut, get to his backhand to let that right hand fly down the middle, I think Tyson Fury can have a lot of success and possibly win against Oleksandr Usyk. But for me, the style of Oleksandr Usyk, I think, is what needs to be talked about here, and not so much, oh, well, he just won a decision over Tyson Fury, and it's like, yeah, it was close. Yeah, it was close, but don't discredit Oleksandr Usyk just because you're a Tyson Fury fan, or you wanted Tyson Fury to win, or you put money on it and thought Fury was going to win. You have to acknowledge that Usyk is a spectacular boxer, and what he brings to the table, I believe, is a style that is incredibly troubling for a guy like Tyson Fury. And part of the reason, normally you see, okay, 85-inch reach here against a 78-inch reach. Okay, so Tyson Fury, he's got the length and reach advantage. And yeah, he's 6'9" compared to Usyk 6'3". But in boxing, what did we see back in the day that made Mike Tyson absolutely dangerous was the fact that he was a big, strong, lower center gravity type of guy. He could bob and weave under shots, and he could extend the combinations, get to you, and put your lights out. And that's what made Tyson so difficult, was these heavyweights that are a little bit shorter and have good power and good footwork. They just seem to be an issue, right? For some of these guys in the top of the division that are taller and rangier and like to kind of pick and poke and fight on the outside. So I believe coming into this, we got Tyson Fury, who's 36. We got Oleksandr Usyk, who's almost 38. These are two guys that are very similar in terms of age, right? So whenever we evaluate this, we're not like, okay, well, one guy's way younger, one guy's way older. Pretty similar here in terms of the age department, both getting a little bit older in their careers. I would say Tyson Fury probably has more miles on him than Oleksandr Usyk does. And I think that those Deontay Wilder fights of Tyson Fury, because if you go back in time, just crazy performances with Deontay Wilder, right? I mean, he was the Undertaker. It looked like he damn near, he wasn't coming back, and then he, wakes back up, gets up off the canvas and comes back. I mean, spectacular performance by Tyson Fury. Goes out there, and that a couple fights with Tyson or with Deontay Wilder. Goes out there against Dylan White. Okay, nasty KO. Goes out there against Derek Chisora, gets a KO. Well, see the difference here. Decision wins for Oleksandr Usyk. Fury, the ability to knock him out, and then goes out there against MMA superstar Francis Ngannou. I thought Ngannou won this. I thought Francis Ngannou won this, and maybe I'm a little biased because I'm an MMA guy. I thought he landed the more damaging shots. He had Tyson Fury in a tremendous amount of trouble. I think Fury heavily underestimated Francis Ngannou coming into that. Then he comes out there against Oleksandr Usyk, and then it was the split decision loss. But look, I think when you talk about the rematch here, we're looking at Tyson Fury, who's going to want to be more aggressive. He's going to want to be on the front foot a little bit more and not let Usyk just dictate the pace the entire time. But there's that fine line, right? Because Tyson Fury is the big, tall, long guy, and he wants to keep him at the edge of range. And if Usyk's bobbing and weaving under shots trying to close the gap, you just don't want to stand in there and allow him, to extend the combinations, because where Oleksandr Usyk had a lot of success was whenever he was able to get Fury moving backwards and was able to land that left hand over the top and some of those short shots inside. And I think that is what separates Usyk from the other opponents when it comes to Tyson Fury, is his style, and the way that he operates, I think, is a tremendous issue for Tyson Fury coming into this boxing match. And that is why I am picking Oleksandr Usyk once again to get this thing done, but I think it's going to be by decision. I'm not saying that it's going to be a split decision like it was last time. I think it will be a more convincing decision win for Oleksandr Usyk, to where there will be less controversy of like, oh, well, maybe Fury won. I think it's going to be a clear-cut Usyk wins this fight this time around. To me, if Tyson Fury can come in and he can be more aggressive, he can kind of lean and wear on Usyk a little bit and start to throw, some of those uppercuts, considering Usyk is shorter than him, and make him pay for trying to close the distance. I can see where Tyson Fury is able to find a finish here. But for me, when you have a guy that's smaller, moving, again, smaller, right? Because he's still a big dude, but for heavyweight, he's a little bit smaller compared to Fury. When you have a guy that's got good footwork and constantly moving forward, letting shots fly on the inside and the outside, that looks good to the judges, right? Whereas when you're on the back foot the whole time, kind of backpedaling, sticking and moving, some judges, they don't see that as particularly great. I mean, which I think is kind of crazy, because it's like, that's his fighting style. Don't hold it against him. But I'm just saying, right? I do believe that might be a little bit of a factor when it comes to scoring this fight, to what those judges may see. But I believe that the speed, the footwork, and the variety in which he throws the combinations that we see from Usyk is going to be the difference in this matchup. And I think that Tyson Fury, while I do believe he's going to make the correct adjustments, I do think he'll get the jab going. He will move well. He would try to lean and carry his weight on Usyk to try to tire him out. I don't know if he's able to land those shots, considering how good Oleksandr Usyk is defensively. And when he extends the combinations, I think he will get to Fury. He hurt him a few times in the first time. I think he'll do it again. I think he wins a more convincing decision this time around. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Comment below who you think is going to win, either Usyk or Fury in the rematch here. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you not miss an upload. I would appreciate it. See you next time.